At the city's most exclusive party, no one expected the pregnant maid to become the center of attention. But that's exactly what happened, and what began as just another night of champagne and aristocratic laughter ended in a public humiliation that would change lives forever. Because sometimes the people we deem insignificant are the only ones who carry the truth everyone needs to hear. The ballroom was resplendent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling like captured constellations, each glass droplet reflecting golden light onto the guests, circulating with champagne flutes in hand. The Italian marble floor gleamed like a mirror, polished to perfection. On the walls, artworks valued at millions silently observed the gathered elite. It was the kind of party that appeared in society columns, where businessmen closed deals between canapes, where politicians shook strategic hands, where every conversation carried an invisible yet real price. And at the center of it all, like a sun around which everyone orbited, was he. Alexandre Thornton, billionaire, entrepreneur of the year, a man whose mere presence at an event guaranteed its relevance. At 42, Alexandre had built a technology empire that rivaled international giants. His face graced magazine covers. His opinion moved markets. His smile opened doors that remained closed to common mortals. That night he was radiant, a custom-tailored Italian suit, graying hair at his temples that only added distinction to his angular face. He laughed loudly, surrounded by a circle of admirers. Businessmen sought his attention. Elegant women cast calculated glances in his direction. He was power incarnate. And then, circulating among these giants with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, was she. Marina Cole was 28, but that night she seemed to carry the weight of many lives. Her black and white uniform was impeccable, ironed with military precision. Her dark brown hair was pulled back into a discreet bun. No jewelry, no makeup beyond the essential. She was trained to be invisible, to be merely hands that served, eyes that avoided prolonged contact, a presence that vanished after fulfilling its function. But there was something that made it impossible not to notice her. Her rounded belly, undeniably pregnant, 5 months, perhaps 6. Her belly pressed lightly against the uniform fabric, a silent declaration amidst the sterile luxury of that environment. Marina moved with studied grace, offering smoked salmon canapes and mini artichoke tarts. She smiled politely when necessary. She murmured, "Excuse me," as she passed between groups. But her eyes told another story. There was a sadness there, deep as the ocean, and something more. An iron determination, hidden beneath layers of forced humility. "More champagne here, darling," ordered a woman in a red dress, without even looking at Marina. She merely extended her empty glass as if Marina were an automaton programmed to serve. "Immediately, madam." Marina took the glass, her fingers trembling imperceptibly. She knew this ballroom. She knew every corner, every artwork, every window overlooking the illuminated garden outside. She had been here before, not as a temporary maid hired for the event, not carrying trays. No one there knew that. No one except her and Alexandre. Marina made her way to the kitchen, where a dozen staff members worked at a frantic pace. She picked up a new bottle of champagne, the cold glass in her hands. She took a deep breath. She returned to the ballroom, and that's when it happened. She was passing a group near the monumental fireplace when she heard a voice she knew all too well. Deep, confident, accustomed to commanding. "The question isn't whether we're expanding into Europe," Alexandre was saying, gesturing with the hand holding a glass of whiskey. "It's when. And with whom? I need partners who understand long-term vision, not opportunists looking for a quick buck." The men around him nodded, hanging on his every word like disciples before a prophet. Marina approached, holding the tray. She needed to get through. It was her job. Simple as that. "Excuse me," she murmured, trying to squeeze through the tight space between the group and the wall. Alexandre turned, distracted, still talking. And then he saw her. The world seemed to slow down. His eyes met hers. For a second, just 1 second, Marina saw something cross his face. Recognition, surprise, perhaps even fear. But then, like a door slamming violently, his expression hardened. "You?" The word came out like an accusation. The group fell silent. All conversations within a 10-foot radius died. Heads turned. Marina felt her stomach drop. I'm working the event, sir. Excuse me." She tried to keep walking. "Wait!" His voice was ice. "Everyone here, take a good look. See what happens when some people don't understand their place." Marina froze. She felt dozens of eyes on her. The entire ballroom seemed to be paying attention now. "Alexandre, what's going on?" a blonde woman asked, hungry curiosity shining in her eyes. He took a step towards Marina. She could smell his expensive cologne, the same fragrance she used to recognize on her pillow. 6 months ago, when everything was different. "What's happening?" he said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Is that some people don't know how to distinguish between a casual night and an invitation to be part of a life. Nervous laughter echoed around. Marina felt her face burn. Some people, he continued, savoring each word like fine wine, confuse kindness with commitment. They confuse one night with a future. Alexandre, Marina whispered, her voice almost inaudible. Please. Please what? He crossed his arms. You show up here at my house pregnant thinking what? That I'm going to have some kind of responsibility? That I'm going to acknowledge something that clearly has nothing to do with me? The shock ricocheted through the ballroom like a shockwave. People whispered. Smartphones discreetly appeared, some already recording. You know you do, Marina said, finding a spark of courage somewhere deep inside. Her hand instinctively went to her belly. You know very well. I know nothing. He turned to the guests, like an actor commanding his stage. Ladies and gentlemen, behold the imagination of some people. I have one night of weakness, a lapse in judgment months ago, and suddenly I'm responsible for this? He gestured vaguely in her direction, as if Marina were an unpleasant object. Tears began to form in Marina's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him, not in front of this audience thirsty for drama. You slept with me, she said, her voice trembling but firm. 3 months. Every week, you came to my apartment. You said I was different, that you respected me. That— Enough! The word thundered. Alexandre advanced, stopping inches from her. You were a diversion, a pastime, nothing more. And if you're pregnant, I suggest you find the real father, because it's not me. The silence that followed was deafening. Marina felt as if the ground were disappearing beneath her feet. Around her, she saw faces. Some shocked, some amused, many judging. She was the joke of the night, the social climber who failed, the pathetic woman who deluded herself. Security, Alexandre called, waving to 2 uniformed men near the door. Please escort this person out, and ensure she doesn't return. No, Marina said, stepping back. I'll go alone. I don't need an escort. I don't need anything from you. Clearly you do, he retorted, turning his back to her, dismissing her as if she no longer existed. You need dignity, but I can't give you that. Only you can find it. Look elsewhere. Laughter, more laughter. Not open guffaws, but the sophisticated titters of the elite, hidden behind crystal glasses and fans of delicious gossip. Marina placed the tray on the nearest table. Her hands trembled so much that the glasses clinked against each other. She looked one last time at Alexandre, at his broad back in the impeccable suit, at the posture of someone who had completely forgotten her. And then something changed in her face. The tears dried. The trembling stopped. Her jaw set. You will regret this, she said, her voice low but clear as a church bell. He didn't even turn around. I doubt it. Marina walked through the ballroom. Each step was an eternity. Every gaze she felt upon her was a blade. People moved away as if she carried a contagious disease. The sea of silk and diamonds parted, letting her pass through a corridor of shame. But she kept her head held high. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She simply walked, a protective hand over her belly, until she reached the monumental door. Outside, the night was cold. The icy air burned her lungs. Marina stopped at the top of the marble staircase that led down to the garden. Behind her, she heard the buzz of the party resuming. Laughter. Music. The life of the elite continued, having already digested and discarded her moment of drama. She looked down at her hands. Hands that had served champagne to people who despised her. Hands that had caressed the face of a man who now denied her existence. Hands that now trembled not from fear but from something different. Rage, pure, crystalline, justified. He will know the truth, she whispered to the night, to the indifferent stars above, to the babies stirring lightly in her womb. He thinks he can erase me. He thinks he can deny. But I have something he can't imagine. I have the truth, and the truth always finds its way. A tear finally escaped, rolling down her cheek. But it wasn't a tear of defeat. It was fuel. It was a promise. Marina descended the stairs, moving away from the illuminated mansion, away from the man who rejected her, away from the life she could have had. But as she walked, a certainty grew in her chest like fire. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot, because she knew something no one in that ballroom knew. Something that would change everything. And when the right moment came, when she returned not as a humiliated servant, but as a woman armed with irrefutable truth, Alexandre Carvalho would discover that some people don't simply disappear because you wish them to. Some people come back. And when they do, they bring storms. The question wasn't if she would return. It was when. And with what devastating proof she would return to turn his world upside down. But what truth was this that she hid? And how could it change everything? Marina walked through the cold city streets, still feeling the weight of that empty gaze, as if they had never met, as if that night had never existed. But it did, and it began in a way she never would have imagined. 6 months earlier, Marina worked in the same luxury condominium where Alexandre lived, but not as a party employee. She was the superintendent's secretary, organizing documents in the small ground floor office. It was an ordinary day that changed everything. Alexandre entered the office, visibly frustrated. He had just argued with the superintendent about problems with his apartment renovation. When he saw Marina there, he stopped. "Sorry for the harsh tone," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean to take it out on anyone." Marina looked up from the documents. She expected to see another arrogant millionaire, but she saw something different: genuine weariness, vulnerability. "Everyone has bad days," she replied with a gentle smile. "Can I help with anything?" And that was it. No grand gestures, no drama, just an honest conversation between two human beings. In the following weeks, Alexandre started appearing in the office more frequently, always with some professional excuse, a document to sign, a question about the works. But he stayed. He talked. He asked about her day. "You're different from the people I know," he said one afternoon, leaning against the counter. "You seem real." Marina laughed. "I'm just an ordinary person doing my job." "Exactly," Alexandre replied, with that smile she was beginning to recognize. "You don't want anything from me. Just conversation." And they talked about bad movies, about childhood, about dreams that seemed too distant to reach. Alexandre spoke of the constant pressure, the business empire, the impossible expectations. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just a piece in a game others are playing," he confessed. Marina shared her own fears. Her sick mother. The bills that never stopped. The dreams of going to college that always got postponed. They saw each other. Truly. Not through social masks or different classes. Just two humans connected by something genuine. Until one night, everything changed. It was Friday, almost 8 in the evening. Marina was working late to finish urgent reports. The building was empty, silent. Alexandre entered the office with 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might need this," he said, extending one to her. "How did you know I was here?" "I know your schedule," he replied simply. "I pay attention." They talked for hours, about everything, about nothing. The coffee grew cold in forgotten cups. When Marina realized, it was already 2 in the morning. "I need to go," she said, starting to gather her things. "Wait." Alexandre gently held her wrist. "I don't want this moment to end." And it didn't. They kissed there, in the small office lit only by the computer screen, without haste, without thinking of tomorrow. "Come with me," Alexandre whispered against her lips. And she went. His apartment was exactly as she imagined. Luxurious, impeccable. But that night, it seemed merely a place where 2 souls had found each other. They made love with an intensity Marina had never experienced. It wasn't just physical. It was connection. It was seeing and being seen. It was feeling that, for a moment, the differences between their worlds didn't matter. Afterward, lying in the darkness, Alexandre traced soft circles on her back. "You make me feel human again," he said. "Like I can just be Alexandre, not the CEO, not the heir, just me." "You were always just you," Marina replied. "To me, you always have been." He pulled her closer. "I don't want this to be just one night." "Me neither." But dawn brought reality. Alexandre received an urgent call. A business crisis. He needed to travel to London immediately. "I'll be back in a week," he promised, kissing her forehead. "Dinner when I return?" "Of course," Marina smiled, but he never called. 1 week turned into 2, then 3. Marina tried to contact him. Unanswered messages. Calls went straight to voicemail, as if he had vanished. Until, a month later, she found out. The positive pregnancy test trembled in her hands. 2 lines, 2 babies. A truth that would change everything. Her best friend, Emma, held her hands when she told her. "You need to tell him," Emma insisted. "He has a right to know." What if he doesn't want to know? What if that night meant nothing to him? Then he's an idiot. But these babies deserve a father, and you deserve answers. Marina knew Emma was right, but fear paralyzed her. Weeks passed. Her belly began to grow. Morning sickness made work almost impossible, until she heard about the party, the charity event at the condominium. Alexandre would be the host. She would have a chance to speak with him in person. "It's risky," Emma warned. "You're vulnerable. What if he rejects you publicly?" "Then at least I'll know," Marina replied, with a determination she didn't know she possessed. "I can't live in uncertainty. My children deserve more than that." She got a temporary job serving at the party, just for one night. Just to gain access. She rehearsed what she would say 1,000 times. "Alexandre, we need to talk. About that night. About what happened afterward. Simple. Direct. True." But when the moment came, when he looked at her with those empty eyes, he didn't recognize her. It wasn't calculated coldness. It wasn't intentional disdain. It was worse. It was total absence, as if she had never existed in his world. And now, walking alone through the dark streets, Marina faced a painful truth. The man who had touched her soul, who had planted life within her, who had promised to be just himself. That man had disappeared. In his place was a stranger, someone capable of completely forgetting the woman carrying his children. But how? How does someone forget such an intense connection? Her hand instinctively went to her belly, where 2 small hearts beat. "You are real," she whispered to them. "All of that was real. I didn't imagine it." But a question haunted her. What could transform a man so completely? What could erase memories of such profound intimacy? Marina stopped under a lamppost, the city silent around her. And then she understood. Alexandre wasn't pretending. He wasn't being cruel. He genuinely didn't remember her. Something had happened. Something she didn't yet comprehend. But one thing was clear. She couldn't simply disappear into the night. Not with the lives of 2 innocents at stake. If he had forgotten, she would need to make him remember. Not with words, not with pleas, with proof, with truth, with a strength she barely knew she possessed. Emma was right about one thing. Her children deserved a father, and she deserved answers, no matter how long it took, no matter what obstacles she faced. Marina would return, not as an invisible servant or a disposable woman, but as the mother of his children, as someone who could no longer be ignored. The humiliation of that night had planted something new within her. Not just anger, not just pain, determination. Alexandre had forgotten, but she would make sure he remembered. The question was, what exactly had happened to him? And when she discovered the truth, would she be able to forgive the man who had disappeared? Those answers would come. But first, she needed to prepare. For the battle that was to come. For the truth that would change everything. For the moment she would return. Not as a forgotten shadow, but as an inevitable storm. Marina knew what she had to do. That night, after being thrown out of the mansion like trash, she made the hardest decision of her life. To disappear. Not out of shame, not out of fear, but because she needed time. Time to process. Time to prepare. And above all, time to protect what was growing inside her. She packed her few clothes into an old suitcase, left the rented apartment downtown, and bought a bus ticket to the countryside, away from judging eyes, away from the cameras, away from Alexandre Thornton and his empire of lies. The town that welcomed her was small, forgotten by time. Simple houses with faded facades, dirt roads, a central square with a fountain that hadn't worked in decades. There was no luxury there, no glamour. But there was something Marina didn't expect to find. Humanity. The first month was brutal. She rented a small room at the back of Martha's house. A woman in her 60s with calloused hands and kind eyes. The room had a single bed, a creaky wardrobe, and a small window overlooking the backyard where chickens roamed freely. The contrast was stark. Just a few months ago, Marina walked through the marble corridors of the Thornton mansion, where every object cost more than she would earn in a year. Now, she shared a bathroom with 2 other tenants and showered with water heated by an electric shower that tripped the circuit breaker every week. But it was safe. And safety, she discovered, was worth more than marble. The first few weeks were of absolute solitude. Marina spent her days lying down, feeling morning sickness turn into permanent nausea. Her belly began to grow, announcing to the world what she was still trying to process. She was going to be a mother, and not of 1 baby, of 2. The discovery of the twins happened at a public clinic 40 minutes away by bus. The sonographer, a tired woman with a stained lab coat, paused the exam and looked at Marina with genuine surprise. "It's 2, she said, pointing to the grainy screen. 2 babies, twins." Marina felt the world spin. 2. How would she raise 2 babies alone? How would she feed 2 mouths when she could barely feed herself? But then she saw, on the blurry screen, 2 small pulsating dots, 2 hearts beating in perfect synchronicity, and something inside her broke and rebuilt itself at the same time. They were hers, completely hers. Alexandre could deny it. His family could humiliate her. But those 2 tiny beings were real. They were alive, and they depended on her. It was Martha who first noticed Marina's condition. One morning, bringing coffee, she found the young woman trembling with fever, delirious in the narrow bed. Without asking, without judging, she called Dr. Henry, a retired doctor who served the community for symbolic prices. Urinary infection, he diagnosed after a quick examination. Common in pregnant women. Needs antibiotics and rest. Marina cried. She had no money for medicine. She barely had enough for next month's rent. Martha squeezed her hand. "God provides, child. You'll see." And he did provide, in ways Marina never imagined. The next-door neighbor, Tom, appeared with a bag of fruit from his farm. "For the pregnant woman," he simply said, without expecting thanks. The grocery store owner sent food baskets. You pay when you can, or don't pay. A child needs to eat. The seamstress from the street above brought baby clothes left over from other clients. "Twins, aren't they?" "You'll need a lot of fabric." At first, Marina didn't understand. Why were these people who barely knew her helping her? She was nothing to them. She had no money to repay them. She had no status to offer. It was Martha who explained on a rainy afternoon as they peeled potatoes together in the kitchen. "We take care of our own here, Marina. Not because you can pay, but because it's the right thing to do. You're alone, pregnant, you need help. So we help. Simple as that. Simple as that." Marina discovered a different kind of wealth in that forgotten community. It wasn't made of money or jewels. It was made of outstretched hands, warm soups left at the door, long conversations in the backyard as the sun set. It was made of Rachel, the town's midwife, who offered to follow her entire pregnancy for free. "I've brought over 200 children into the world," she said proudly. 2 more won't make a difference." Rachel was almost 70, with firm hands and a wisdom no private hospital doctor possessed. She taught Marina about the changes in her body, about the pains that would come, about how to breathe during contractions. "Your body was made for this," she would say, as she massaged Marina's aching back. "You are stronger than you think." Marina wanted to believe, but some days her strength failed her. There were nights when she woke up in a cold sweat, remembering the laughter at the party, the cameras, Victoria's voice calling her a gold digger, Alexandre's empty gaze as security pushed her out. There were days when she looked at her growing belly in the broken bathroom mirror and wondered if she had made the right choice, if she should have aborted, if she should have given up. But then the babies moved, small punches and kicks against her ribs as if saying, "We are here, hold on for us." And she held on. The 7th month brought new challenges. Marina developed mild preeclampsia. Her blood pressure rose dangerously. Dr. Henry visited her 3 times a week, monitoring, medicating, reassuring. "You'll make it," he always said, "just a little longer." Martha practically moved into Marina's small room, sleeping in a chair beside the bed, waking at every whimper to check if everything was all right. "Do you have family?" Marina asked on one of those sleepless nights. "I did," Martha replied softly. "A daughter. She died in childbirth 20 years ago. She was your age." Silence hung heavy between them. "I couldn't save her," the old woman continued, her voice choked. "But I can save you. And these babies." Marina cried. For herself, for Martha, for the daughter she never knew, for all the pain and love that coexisted in the world. It was on an October dawn that the contractions began. Marina woke at 5 in the morning with a dull ache in her back that quickly transformed into intense waves coursing through her body. Martha called Rachel. Rachel called Dr. Henry. In minutes, the small room transformed into an improvised delivery room. "Breathe, girl," Rachel commanded, holding her hand. "Breathe and push. Your body knows what to do." But Marina's body seemed to have forgotten everything. The pain was unbearable. Each contraction tore her in half. She screamed, sweated, gripped the sheets with enough force to tear them. "I can't," she sobbed between contractions. "I can't." "Yes, you can." Martha wiped her face with a damp cloth. "You've been through so much. You can handle this." It was 8 hours. 8 hours of indescribable pain, of strength Marina didn't know she possessed, of her body opening to make way for 2 new lives. And then, at 13:17 in the afternoon, the first cry tore through the air. "It's a boy," Rachel announced, lifting a tiny baby covered in vernix and blood. A beautiful boy. Marina didn't even have time to process before the second wave of contractions hit her. Another 15 minutes of pure effort, of screams that came from the depths of her soul. And finally, at 13:32, the second cry joined the first. A girl. Rachel laughed and cried at the same time. "You have a pair, Marina. A beautiful pair." Dr. Henry worked quickly, cutting cords, checking vital signs, ensuring everything was well. And it was. Against all odds, 3 lives had survived that birth. Rachel cleaned the babies with warm water and wrapped them in soft towels before placing them, one in each arm, on Marina's chest. And in that moment, the whole world disappeared. Marina looked at the 2 tiny faces, eyes closed, mouths instinctively searching for her breast. The boy had Alexandre's nose. The girl had her eyes. But both were completely hers. "My children," she whispered, tears streaming down. "My babies." There were no mansions there. No marble, no champagne, no photographers. There was only a simple small room in the back of a humble house, with peeling walls and an old fan creaking on the ceiling. But in that moment, Marina felt richer than Alexandre Thornton would ever be. Because she had created life. 2 lives. From nothing, her body had built 2 complete human beings. And now they depended on her. Completely, absolutely hers. Martha kissed her forehead. "You were so brave, girl. So brave." Rachel adjusted the babies so they could nurse. "They are perfect. Healthy and perfect." Dr. Henry checked their vital signs one last time. "A warrior. You are a warrior, Marina." And for the first time in months, Marina smiled. A real, genuine smile that came from a deep place she thought she had lost. She had survived. More than that, she had triumphed. In the following days, as she recovered and learned to breastfeed 2 hungry babies, Marina began to think, to plan. The strategy slowly formed in her mind, crystal clear and inevitable. Alexandre had power. He had money. He had expensive lawyers and a surname that opened doors. But Marina had something he could never buy or deny. She had living proof, breathing, crying, existing in her arms. 2 babies with the undeniable DNA of Alexandre Thornton. A boy with his aristocratic nose, his defined eyebrows, even that small birthmark on his shoulder that Alexandre proudly showed in summer photos. A girl with his eyes, the shape of his hands, that dimple on his chin that the entire Thornton family had carried for generations. The evidence was irrefutable. It was there, alive, growing every day. Marina held her children closer, feeling their delicious weight against her chest. They slept peacefully, oblivious to the complex world that awaited them. "You are my strength," she whispered in the silence of the small room. "And we will return, not to beg, not to ask for crumbs, but to demand what is rightfully ours." Outside, the sun set over the small, forgotten town. But inside that simple room, something new was born along with the twins. A mother was born. A fighter. A woman who had lost everything and, in losing, had discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. The proof was in her arms, warm and alive and undeniable. But would it be enough against an empire of lies? Against ruthless lawyers? Against a family willing to destroy anyone who threatened their reputation? Anna didn't know, not yet. But one thing she was sure of, she would not return defeated. She would not return begging. She would return as a mother, as a warrior, as the only person in the world who could give Lucas Mendez what all his money had failed to buy. True heirs, blood of his blood. And when she returned, the whole world would know the truth. The question that kept her awake on silent nights, as she rocked 2 hungry babies, was not if she would return. It was how. How to prove the improbable. How to make a billionaire acknowledge children he denied existed. How to turn public humiliation into recognized justice. The answers would come. They had to come. Because Ana Maria Santos was no longer just a disposable employee. She was no longer the naive girl who believed the promises of a powerful man. She was a mother now. And mothers, she was learning, were capable of anything to protect their children. even facing a billionaire, even demanding the impossible, even changing destiny. Months passed like pages of a book she was writing alone. The twins grew, smiles, first words, teetering steps that filled the tiny apartment with life. And with each milestone, each photo she never posted, a question hammered harder. How long would she let that man live his life as if nothing had happened? She was no longer the naive girl from the party. Motherhood had sharpened something inside her, a cold clarity, a determination that asked no permission. But anger wasn't enough. Indignation wasn't enough. The world wouldn't believe her word. He had lawyers. She had overdue bills. So she needed something no lawyer could refute. Proof. On a Tuesday night after putting the twins to sleep, she opened the borrowed laptop and started researching. The words paternity test appeared in the search bar. Enter. The internet opened up like an infinite library. She read everything. Scientific articles explaining DNA, forums of mothers in similar situations, laboratory websites promising confidential and accurate results. Each click educated her. Each paragraph armed her. DNA was pure mathematics, objective science. You couldn't buy a different result. You couldn't bribe chromosomes. You couldn't hire public relations to change nucleotides. 99.9% accuracy. This was it. This was the weapon she needed. But there was a problem. The tests required samples from both parents. She had the twins' DNA. She had her own, but she needed his. From the man who had discarded her like a used napkin. How to get DNA from a billionaire who lived behind security guards and electronic gates. She could ask, but he would deny it. She could accuse him publicly, but it would just be her against his image machine. No. She needed to collect it without him knowing. The research continued. Hair with roots, saliva, blood, nails, any cell would do. The human body left traces wherever it went. And billionaires, however protected they were still human. She needed access, and access was something she no longer had. Or did she? The idea came in a sleepless dawn, when one of the twins woke up crying. As she rocked her child, looking out the window at the illuminated city below, she remembered. The parties. Those damned parties that happened all year round. Charity events, gala dinners, auctions for noble causes where the rich displayed generosity while drinking $1,000 champagne by the glass. Events where temporary staff were always needed. Waiters, attendants, support staff. She could go back, not as a guest, as an invisible employee, as she always was. The plan began to take shape. Detailed, meticulous. She tracked his social agenda through newspaper columns and social media. Identified a charity event 3 weeks away. Big, public. The kind of occasion where he always appeared to polish his image. She called the event company that coordinated the staff. Said she had experience, that she was available, that she needed the job. They hired her without asking questions. Cheap labor was always welcome. The following weeks were military preparation. She bought a DNA collection kit online. Discreet, small. It would fit in her uniform pocket. She studied how to handle samples without contamination. She watched YouTube videos on genetic material preservation. She learned that a single strand of hair with a follicle was enough. She transformed obsession into methodology. She mentally rehearsed scenarios. If he touched a glass, she would memorize which one. If he used the restroom, she would know how to access it afterward. If he left any cellular trace, she would be ready to capture it. The night of the event arrived. Black and white uniform, hair tied back, face without flashy makeup. She needed to be invisible. And the rich had an extraordinary ability not to see those who served them. The hall was exactly as she remembered. Crystal chandeliers, tables decorated with exorbitantly expensive flowers, the smell of money perfuming every corner. And there he was, older, perhaps more tired, but still wearing that confidence that only money could buy, talking, laughing, being photographed next to his impeccable wife. She felt her stomach churn. Not from nervousness, from focus. She observed, waited, followed his movements with the precision of a predator studying its prey. He touched a wine glass, drank, left it on the table while greeting someone. She passed by, collecting dirty dishes, picked up the glass, wrapped the napkin around it, stored it in a separate bag. First item collected. Later, he ran his hand through his hair in an animated conversation. Some strands remained on the back of the chair when he stood up. She cleaned the area minutes later, collected the strands with small tweezers, placed them in a sealed envelope. Second item collected. When the night ended and the guests left, satisfied with their own generosity, she exited through the back door with the protected samples in her bag. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed. The next day, she sent the material to the lab. She paid with money she had saved for months selling objects and working odd jobs at night. 450 rais that hurt to spend, but were worth every penny. The deadline was 15 business days. 15 days that dragged on like 15 years. She continued her routine. She took care of the twins. She worked. She cleaned. She cooked. But inside, a clock counted every second. Every hour that separated her from the confirmation she already knew deep in her soul. He was the father. She was sure. But emotional certainty wasn't valid in court. She needed scientific certainty. 10 days. 12 days. 14. On the morning of the 15th day, she woke up before the twins. She checked her email compulsively. Nothing. She checked again. Nothing. At 11:23 in the morning, the notification arrived. Paternity test results. Available for download. She froze. Her hands trembled over the mouse. Her heart beat so hard she thought it would wake the girls sleeping in the next room. She clicked. Typed the password. The PDF opened. Pages of technical data, graphs, numbers, scientific terminology she had learned to decipher in recent weeks. And then, on the third page, in black letters on a white background, probability of paternity, 99. 9%. The alleged father cannot be excluded as the biological father of the twins. She read it again, and once more. 99.9%. It wasn't a hunch. It wasn't emotion. It wasn't her word against his. It was science. It was fact. It was pure mathematics crystallized in an official document. She had the proof. She printed 3 copies, saved the digital file in 4 different places, saved it to the cloud, emailed it to herself. That paper was more valuable than any diamond displayed at those cursed parties. For days, she just looked at the document, held it in her hands, reread the numbers, felt the weight of those printed words. He had his life, his company, his perfect marriage, his immaculate reputation, the respect of society. And she had this undeniable truth, this paper bomb. The question now was no longer, is he the father? It was, what am I going to do with this information? She could find a lawyer, file a paternity suit, force him legally, secure child support, give her daughters the surname that was rightfully theirs. But a part of her wanted more. She didn't just want court rulings. She wanted him to feel what she felt. The humiliation, the loneliness, the burden of being invisible. She wanted the world that applauded him to know who he really was. For weeks, she pondered, planned, considered every move like a chess player studying the board. And then, one ordinary afternoon, while bathing the twins and listening to their laughter echoing in the tiny bathroom, the decision crystallized. She would return, not as the pregnant and desperate girl, not as the invisible maid. She would return with the truth in her hands, with science on her side, with proof that no lawyer, no amount of money, no public relations machine could refute. She had the document, but would she have the courage? The answer came when she looked at her daughters. Wet hair, bright eyes, smiles that didn't yet know the world could be cruel. Yes, she would. Because it wasn't just about her anymore. It was about them, about truth, about justice, and about teaching the 2 girls that no man, no matter how powerful, was above consequences. The paper was stored. The plan was formed. Now it was just a matter of time. 3 years later, Marina stood in front of the mirror. The same woman, but not the same. She adjusted her black blazer. Simple but well-tailored. No luxury. No ostentation, just presence. Beside her on the sofa, 2 3-year-old twins played with building blocks. A boy, a girl. His eyes, his smile. Impossible to deny. Mommy will be out for a little while, she said, kissing their foreheads. The nanny smiled. Everything will be fine, Marina. Marina picked up her bag. Inside, an envelope. Sealed. DNA. Scientific truth that all the money in the world couldn't buy. Today, she would return. Not as a maid, as a mother. The Thornton Foundation's charity event occupied the entire noble hall of the Grand Hotel. The same chandeliers, the same marble, the same people. Marina walked through the main door. Excuse me, madam, the security guard blocked. Invitation, please? She stared at him, firm. I don't need an invitation. I came to speak with Alexandre Thornton. Mr. Thornton does not receive without an appointment. He will receive me. The tone was not aggressive, it was certainty. The security guard hesitated, something in her posture. She wasn't someone who could be simply dismissed. I'll need you to wait here while... I won't wait. Marina walked past him, straight into the hall. Heads turned. Not because she was extravagantly dressed, not because she screamed, but because she didn't belong there. And yet, she walked as if she did. Confidence not bought. Earned. A woman in a ball gown murmured to her friend, Who is she? No idea. But look at her stride. Marina crossed the ballroom. Her eyes swept over the groups, the champagne flutes, the polite smiles. And then she saw him. Alexandre Thornton, at the center of a circle of executives, smiling, gesturing, commanding the conversation as he always commanded everything. She walked straight towards him. The executives noticed first. They stopped talking, looked at her. Alexandre followed their gaze. He turned and froze. 5 seconds, maybe 6. Recognition, confusion, discomfort. Marina? His voice held uncertainty, as if it couldn't be. Alexandre, she said, calm, firm. He gave a half smile, forced. What a surprise. What are you doing here? I came to talk to you. The circle of executives exchanged glances. One of them cleared his throat. Alexandre, if you need a moment. No, Alexandre cut him off too quickly. It's not necessary. Miss Marina here is just a little confused about social protocols. He tried to laugh. No one laughed with him. Marina took a step forward. I'm not confused. I'm here because you are the father of my children. Silence. Total. Absolute. Conversations around them stopped. Champagne flutes hung suspended in the air. Alexandre blinked. Once. Twice. What? You heard me, he laughed. But the laugh came out wrong. Nervous. Look, I don't know what kind of trick you're trying to pull, but it's not a trick. They're twins. A boy and a girl, 3 years old. The color drained from his face. You're crazy. We never. Never what, Alexandre? Never slept together in your suite after that party? Never sent me away when you found out I was pregnant? Murmurs began, low, but growing. Alexandre looked around. He realized they were being watched. Marina, this is ridiculous. You're causing a scene. You caused a scene 3 years ago, when you called me a gold digger, a liar, a con artist. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. A man in the group next to them turned completely to watch. A woman whispered, "My God, could it be true?" Alexandre took a step forward, closer to her, his voice low but harsh. You have no proof. Marina held his gaze. I do. More people approached. A circle was forming. Discreet, but present. Alexandre noticed. And that made him even more nervous. Look, he tried a conciliatory tone. If you need money, I didn't come here for money. Then, why? Revenge? Attention? I came because my children deserve to know who their father is. Your children, not mine. Marina felt the anger rise, but she didn't let it show. DNA doesn't lie, Alexandre. He scoffed. DNA? You did a DNA test? I did. With what? Stolen saliva? Hair you kept for 3 years? That's legally worthless. It's valid when done in a certified lab, with a legally collected sample. Alexandre frowned. I never gave a sample. You didn't need to. There are ways. There weren't, but the doubt was planted. He hesitated, just for a second. But he hesitated, and Marina saw. A voice emerged from the circle that had formed. Alexandre, is this true? It was Robert Thornton, his business partner. Alexandre turned, irritated. Of course not. She's making things up. Then why is she here? Why risk a defamation lawsuit if it wasn't true? Marina didn't expect support, but she received it. Another voice, female, from the left. I remember her. She used to work at your family's parties, didn't she? Alexandre gritted his teeth. She worked. For a few months. Nothing more than that. Funny, the woman continued, because I remember seeing you talking to her at one of those parties. You seemed quite interested. Alexandre's face turned red. This is ridiculous. Are you going to believe her? A complete stranger? I am not unknown, Marina said, her voice still calm. I've served drinks to half the people here. I've cleaned the dishes you dirtied. I was invisible. But I was there. Silence. Heavy. Someone coughed. Alexandre pointed a finger at her. "You're ruining my reputation over a lie." "Then take a DNA test with me, now. Prove I'm lying." He stopped, mouth open. No response. Marina took another step. "You know they're your children, Alexandre. You always knew. That's why you sent me away. That's why you never wanted to listen. Because if you did, you'd have to admit it." "I admit nothing." "You don't have to admit it. Science will do it for you." She opened her purse, pulled out the envelope, white, sealed. Laboratory logo printed in the corner. The people around stretched their necks. Alexandre looked at the envelope, and for the first time, he was afraid. "What is that?" "Paternity test result." "Impossible. I never." "There are ways, Alexandre. When you want the truth, you find a way." She held the envelope in the air, all eyes glued to it. "Inside this envelope is scientific proof that you are the father of 2 children. 2 children you denied, rejected, pretended didn't exist." Alexandre took a step back. "This is a setup. You faked. Certified lab. You can verify it. The test code is here. Anyone can check its authenticity." Robert Thornton approached. "May I see?" Marina extended the envelope to him. Alexandre lunged forward. "No, you have no right." "I have every right," Marina cut in. "They are my children, and if you keep denying it, I will sue for paternity recognition. And then, it won't be at a party. It will be in a courtroom, with a judge, with the press, with everything." The silence was deafening. Robert looked at the envelope, looked at Alexandre. "Is it true, Alexandre?" Alexandre didn't answer. He couldn't. Marina turned to the circle of people. 3 years ago, I was humiliated here. Called a liar, expelled, treated like trash. She took a deep breath. "Today, I return. Not for revenge, not for money, but because my children deserve a father, even if that father is a coward." Alexandre clenched his fists. "You can't do this to me. You did this to me. I'm just bringing the truth to light." She held the envelope back, raised it. "Inside this paper is the truth, scientifically proven, irrefutable." And then, she looked directly at Alexandre. "You can deny it all you want, but DNA doesn't lie." She began to open the envelope, slowly, the seal breaking. Alexandre watched, pale. Everyone watched. And Marina thought, now, there's no turning back. She took the paper out, unfolded it, and what was written there would change everything. Time seemed to freeze. Marina held the envelope as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Because in a way, it was. All eyes in the room were fixed on her, waiting, holding their breath. Alexandre remained pale, his arrogance dissipating like morning mist in the sun. "Do you want to know what I have here?" Marina's voice was firm now, every word laden with years of silence and pain transformed into strength. "It's the truth you tried to bury, that you tried to hide behind money and power." She opened the envelope with surprisingly calm hands. The sound of the paper tearing echoed through the silent room like distant thunder. From within, she pulled out an official document with stamps and seals that even the most distant guests could recognize as authentic. "Gene Trust Laboratory," she began to read, her clear voice cutting through the silence like a sharp blade. "Paternity test. Paternal sample. Alexandre James Thornton III. Maternal samples. Elena and Michael Thornton." His name, pronounced aloud, along with the names of the twins, created a visible wave of shock through the crowd. Marina paused, not out of hesitation, but for dramatic effect. She had learned from him, after all, the power of timing. Probability of paternity. She raised her eyes from the document, meeting Alexandre's gaze directly. In this moment, he was the one who couldn't look away. 9%. The words hung in the air like a final sentence. 99.9%. There was no room for doubt, no space for denial. Science, cold and relentless, had pronounced its verdict. Alexandre recoiled as if he had taken a physical blow. This is impossible, he stammered, but his voice had lost all authority. You can't. You never what? Marina took a step towards him. Never slept with me? Never whispered promises in the dark, saying I was special, different? Never made me believe that maybe, just maybe, I mattered to you? Tears rolled freely down her face now, but they were not tears of shame or defeat. They were tears of liberation, of truth finally expressed after so long held in her heart. I was 3 months pregnant when you fired me, she continued, and every word was a revelation that reconfigured the story everyone thought they knew. 3 months carrying your children, not 1, but 2, and you threw me out like I was trash, without explanation, without a chance to defend myself. Just your cold words. Your services are no longer needed. Catherine, Alexandre's mother, was visibly shaken. Her hand flew to cover her mouth, her wide eyes alternating between her son and Marina. Alexandre, she whispered, her voice trembling. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't. But he can't, because everyone in the room can see the truth plastered across his face. Shock has given way to recognition, and recognition is slowly morphing into something that looks dangerously like horror. Not at what Marina did, but at what he himself did. I wanted to tell him, Marina turns to Catherine, including the entire room in her words. I came to this house 3 times. 3 times I tried to speak with him, to tell him I was expecting his children. But I never made it past the door. His security guards had orders to keep me away. Victoria, who just minutes ago stood by Alexandre with her malice and judgment, recoiled from him as if he were suddenly radioactive. Other guests begin to whisper among themselves, conversations shifting from shocked to clearly sympathetic towards Marina. Show me that document. Catherine's voice cuts through the murmur. She's standing now, walking towards Marina with determined steps, but there's no threat in her eyes. There's something more complex, a mix of horror, sadness, and perhaps, just perhaps, a desire to make things right. Marina hands over the document without hesitation. Catherine studies it carefully, her eyes scanning every line, every number, every official seal. When she finally looks up, there are tears in her own eyes. This is real, she declares, her voice laden with the authority that comes from decades of building an empire alongside her husband. Gene Trust Laboratory is the most respected institution in the country for genetic testing. These signatures, these seals, this cannot be faked. She turns to her son, and for the first time that night, Marina sees Alexandre truly small. Not physically, but in some essential way. His entire posture, all his carefully constructed arrogance, crumbles under his mother's disappointed gaze. How could you? Catherine whispers, but in the perfect acoustics of the room, everyone hears. How could you do this? Turn your back on your own children? I didn't know. Alexandre's defense explodes from him like a desperate reflex. She never told me. How could I have known if she never— She tried! Catherine cuts in, her voice sharp as broken glass. You heard what she said. She tried 3 times, and you kept her away. Built walls. Put up guards. The silence that follows is different from the previous ones. This is a silence of judgment, and for the first time in his life, Alexandre is on the receiving end. Marina observes all of this with a calm that surprises even herself. She had imagined this moment so many times, fantasized about revenge, about seeing him suffer as she had suffered. But now that it's here, she feels no cruel triumph. She feels only relief. The truth is finally free, and that is enough. I didn't come here to destroy you, she says calmly, and everyone turns to listen. I came because my children deserve to know who their father is. Because they deserve to have the chance to be acknowledged, not to grow up in the shadow of a lie. She takes a deep breath, gathering courage for the next words. Elena asks why we don't have pictures with Daddy like the other kids at school. Michael invented an elaborate story about you being a secret superhero on missions. They are children, Alexandre. Innocent children who didn't ask to be born into this complicated situation. For the first time, something genuine crosses Alexandre's face. It's not exactly remorse, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of a real understanding of what his actions caused. Or rather, what his inaction caused. They are. His voice falters. They are 4 years old? They just turned 5, Marina replies softly. In December, in the middle of a blizzard. I was alone in the hospital because I had no one to call. I worked until the last day before delivery because I needed every penny. And when they were born, when I saw them for the first time, do you know what I thought? She doesn't wait for an answer. I thought you were missing out on the most beautiful thing in the world. I thought that if you knew, if you truly understood what you were rejecting, maybe you would change your mind. I want to meet them." The words leave Alexandre almost as a whisper, but they carry the weight of a mountain shifting. Marina studies his face, looking for signs of manipulation, of playing to the audience, but she sees only confusion, shock, and perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of something that could become responsibility. "It doesn't work like that," she replies firmly. "You don't just waltz into their lives simply because it's convenient now. You don't show up like a fairy tale father and expect them to accept you with open arms. So how does it work?" For the first time, there's a genuine question in his voice, not a demand. "Slowly," Marina says, "with respect, with consistency, and above all, with responsibility. They need support, not just financial but emotional. They need someone who shows up, who keeps promises, who is present." Catherine approaches again, placing a gentle hand on Marina's arm. "And they will have that," she says with unwavering authority. "You have my word, my grandchildren, because that's what they are, my grandchildren. Will never again face hardship. Never again will they feel unwanted." She turns to Alexandre with a look that brooks no argument. "You will make this right. You will take responsibility, and you will learn to be half the man your children deserve. Or God help me, I will." She doesn't finish the threat, but she doesn't need to. Alexandre nods, silent. His entire empire built on trust and authority, reduced to a man facing the consequences of his choices. The following months bring changes Marina could never have predicted. There are meetings with lawyers, carefully drafted custody agreements, financial support established to ensure Elena and Michael never again know what it is to be in need. But more important than all of this are the first carefully supervised meetings. Alexandre is awkward at first, clearly uncomfortable in the unfamiliar territory of genuine fatherhood. But Elena, with her open and loving nature, breaks down his defenses. And Michael, with his endless questions and insatiable curiosity about everything, forces Alexandre to be truly present. Not just physically, but emotionally. Catherine becomes a fierce and protective grandmother, the kind who shows up unannounced with gifts, but also with wise advice and genuine support. She and Marina develop a mutual respect, not a friendship, not yet, but something built on a solid foundation of shared love for two extraordinary children. Marina does not return to work as a maid. With the established support, she finally enrolls in the nursing college she always dreamed of. She studies at night after the twins are asleep, determined to build a future based on her own merits, not just on Alexandre's support. Because that is the truth she discovered that dramatic night in the mansion. Her dignity never depended on Alexandre recognizing it. It didn't depend on DNA tests or courts or money. It was always there, within her, waiting for her to be brave enough to claim it. The twins grow up knowing their story, not all the painful details, not yet, but the essence. That they were raised with immense love, that their mother fought battles to protect them, that they have a father who is learning, one day at a time, to be present. That family can take many forms, and that truth and courage are the strongest foundations upon which to build a life. And Marina, standing in the small apartment she can now call her permanent home, with hard-earned diplomas hanging on the wall and photos of two identical smiles decorating every surface, finally understands. She didn't need their validation to be whole. She was always complete. She just needed the courage to believe it. The journey from invisible to undeniable wasn't about making others see her. It was about finally seeing herself, in all her strength, all her resilience, all her unshakable dignity. And that is a story that deserves to be told, not as a tale of revenge, but as a testament to the power of truth and the unbreakable strength of a mother protecting her children. If this story touched something in you, if it resonated with your own journey of finding your voice amidst the silence, share it. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that it is possible, that you can face the giants, you can claim your truth, and you can emerge not just whole, but stronger than you ever imagined possible.